let's talk about running a marathon. Let's say that it's, January 1st and your New Year's resolution is I'm going to run a marathon by the end of this year. I'm going to train for this marathon. You start getting all excited about it and you set this big goal of running a marathon I've never run before. So you know what I should probably do? I should probably research some shoes because I'm going to need shoes to run in. Let's research best shoes that you can buy to run a marathon in. Okay, cool. And I do hours of research on shoes. And then I go onto YouTube and I watch videos about these different shoes, and people who are runners talk about the shoes that they use. And then you know what I find? I find an influencer, a vlogger, someone who runs, and they have videos of their vlogging. Yes, I need to watch them for a few hours and make sure that I learn about how to become a better runner. Then what I should do is, they were wearing some pretty cool shorts. My shorts are a little bit too long. They don't look like they're runner shorts. So maybe I should research the best shorts for runners. And as I'm doing, I should probably research the best shirts for runners. And I can go up and you know what? Okay, I've got my shoes, I've got my shorts, I've got my shirts. Now I'm going to go onto YouTube and look up runners that teach me how to run better. And I'm going to read articles. Hey, there might even be a running podcast. Ooh, I bet you there is. I'm going to read some books on them as well. I'm going to go and find the best runner books that I can get. Oh my God, there's a runner's magazine. I'm going to subscribe to runner's magazine. But the only thing, you see what I'm doing, right? This is what we all do. This is what we do as humans. We are busy versus productive. We act like we're doing the thing, but we're really doing all of the outside ancillary things that don't really matter, when the only thing is like, put any pair of shoes on your feet and just go for a run. In the hours that you started researching, you could have gone on your first run. You could have come back. You could have had some water. You could have gone on another run. The only thing that you truly need to do is put on some freaking shoes and start running. It's the difference between being busy versus being productive. And so what we tend to do, and what I find with a lot of business owners, I find a lot of people just in general, is we fake ourselves out as being productive, which would be, in the case of a runner, productive would be going for a run and trying to get better. Being busy is all of the things that are outside of that. And so the real question you need to ask yourself, and I've said this on the podcast many times. I've said this to myself tens of thousands of times over the past 20 years since it was taught to me by my first mentor. And the question is this: is what I'm doing right now getting me closer to or further from my goals? Is what I'm doing right now getting me closer to my goals? Don't BS yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Be honest. Looking at shoe reviews is not going to make you a better runner. Now, could you, of course, get better shoes? I'm sure you could. But think about it, though. You're going to need good shoes, of course, but do that another time. Just get out and go for a run. Why don't you research shoes at a time when you can't go for a run? Like when the kids come back and they're doing all of their homework and you have an extra 30 minutes while they're doing their homework. That's when you could do it, because you can't leave the house and go for a run. So why don't you do it at that point? Why don't you put it in the right time? And so really what it comes down to, and what I had said to everybody that was on this call that I was on, is this is how life works. Either you do it or you don't do it. It's that simple. It is very black and white. Success, whatever the success means to you, whether that's love, whether that's happiness, whether that's become a millionaire, whether that's leaving a lasting legacy, whether that's whatever it is for you, building a multi-billion-dollar business, everybody's definition of success is different. Either you get the life that you want or you don't. And it is that black and white. It is that simple. Which means that either you take the action towards the life that you want or you don't. And so if you're sitting around going, well, how can I be more productive? How can I do these? How can I start to build this company? How can I start to lose more weight? How can I put on more muscle? How can I become a better spouse, a better parent? Figure it out. Either you do it or you don't do it. It's very simple. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody. If it's going to be done, you have to do it. And I've been doing a lot of research recently on parenting and seeing how parents are and stuff. One of the things that I've found is that one of the most beneficial things that you can do is to allow your children to struggle. And not too much, but allow them, don't step in and save them all of the time. Because one thing that's been changing a lot over the years is that a lot of parents have started stepping in and saving their children that, when they were younger. And in turn, it builds this this reliance on somebody else versus this I'm self-sufficient feeling. And so one of the things that we need to all understand as we're starting to look at is that maybe you had a parent that stepped in too much. Maybe you had a parent that came and did everything for you. And they not because they wanted in any sort of way other than they loved you so much they wanted to help you. They wanted to make it easier. They didn't want you to struggle. They love you. They don't want you to struggle. And so maybe they stepped in too much. Maybe they did your homework. Maybe they did too many things for you and kind of stepped in. And in turn, you kind of develop this feeling of needing somebody else. Well, you can't do that anymore. Once you're an adult, your parents aren't going to come and save you. You've got to be an adult at some point. I've met people that are 50-year-old children, and they're still waiting for someone to step in and save them. If it's going to be done, you have to do it. You have to make the decision that you are fed up with where you currently are. You're fed up with living up to 45% of your potential. You're fed up with not bringing your full self into this world and discovering who you could be. You're fed up with letting your fears and letting your limiting beliefs that don't actually exist in reality, they only exist in your head, these fears and these limiting beliefs. You're fed up with all of this shit. And then you're just going to say, you know what? I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to change my life. I remember specifically, about 9 years ago, before I started this podcast, about 10 years ago, before I started this podcast and everything, I remember when I was younger and I was in my first sales company and I built a real big office with them. And, I started when I was 19 and then I opened up one of my own offices with them and I was one of the top offices in the entire world out of over 700. And I was such a hard worker. I was grinding. I was doing well. I was making money. I was successful, all of this stuff when I was 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 years old. And then I left that and I went into corporate and I was in corporate for 5 years and I started getting lazy. And I got really lazy. And I remember thinking to myself this very potent thought of, I miss who I used to be. And I was like, I've become a lazy POS and my life is going nowhere. And unless I pick it up and I do it on my own, I'm not going to like where my destination is going to look, like what it's going to look like. I need to fix something. And I had to make a decision. I'm going to make a change. And when I say decision, I had to consciously cut off the old version of me that I had been at that moment in time and say, I'm not going back to this version of me that's lazy. I'm going to work my ass off. I'm going to make sure that I create the life that I want for myself. And I've said it many times over the podcast, but the root word for decision is decadere, which means to cut off all other options. And so if you're listening to this podcast, you've got to just do it. There is no other thing than doing the thing. Either you get the life that you want. If you were to be able to fast forward to the end of your life, you either have the life that you wanted or you didn't. And the actions that you did or did not take will dictate from this moment forward whether you get the life that you want or you don't. You've got to burn the ships. There can be no other option. And it goes back to, the great philosopher Marshall Mathers. And the quote is, success is my only motherfucking option, failure's not. And you've got to look at it that way and say, what do I need to do to be successful? What do I need to do to be happy? What do I need to do to be wealthy? What do I need to do to be the best parent? What do I need to do to be the best spouse? And you've got to stop screwing around and acting like you're doing it. And you've got to just go out and actually do it. Ultimately, that is the most important thing that you can do, is decide who you're going to be, how you're going to do it, and then take the actions to get there. The richest place is in the graveyard. And why